I poured myself another cup of coffee and stared at the empty kitchen. Lena had been quiet all evening, scrolling on her phone with that same distant look she always wore lately. "Did you eat yet?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She muttered without looking up. I pressed. Was that a yes or a no? "Yeah," she said finally, barely raising her eyes. Then she returned to her screen. I swallowed hard and sipped my coffee, feeling the warmth fail to reach me. I'd stopped arguing months ago, why bother? Everything I said bounced off her like a wall I couldn't see past. She didn't yell, didn't slam doors, she just evaporated. Little by little, day by day, she erased me from her life. "Work today?" she asked, not looking up. "Yeah, long day," I said. It wasn't a lie. I worked long hours, but not just for money. I kept her thinking I was some mid-level employee. She'd never ask where I really worked, and I liked it that way. It gave me some peace, an invisible distance I could control. She hummed and returned to her phone. I wanted to ask her why she'd gone cold, but my throat felt tight, and my heart heavier than words could carry. Silence had become easier than confrontation. Later, I found myself in the living room, half watching the news, half listening to the faint sound of her typing upstairs. She was quiet, methodical. Everything about her had become quiet except for that screen in her hands. "Lena?" I called softly. She answered. I'm heading to bed soon. You coming?" "Nope," she said without emotion. I nodded, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Okay, night then." The stairs creaked as I made my way to my room. I paused halfway, hearing her voice, low and almost whispering, into her phone. I'll meet you there, yeah, okay." I froze. Her whisper had an edge I hadn't heard in years, an intimacy I wasn't part of. My chest tightened. I leaned against the wall, listening. "I miss you, Eric," she said. My heart stopped. The sound of his name on her lips hit me like a punch I didn't see coming. I wanted to burst in, scream, demand answers, but I couldn't move. My legs felt like lead. My voice felt like sand. I swallowed and crept down the stairs, pretending to grab something in the kitchen. My hands shook. She didn't notice me. Her words kept coming. "I can't wait to see you again, just a little longer." I felt cold. My chest ached, but I told myself to stay quiet. Confrontation wouldn't fix this. Watching her, hearing her, was unbearable, yet I couldn't turn away. I sat at the counter, pretending to stir my coffee. My mind raced, torn between disbelief and a painful, sinking certainty. I remembered the mornings when she used to smile at me over breakfast, brush her hair out of her face, ask how my day would be. Those mornings had vanished like smoke. All that was left was a stranger whispering another man's name in our house. I wanted to run upstairs, knock on her door, shake her awake, shout that I was right there, but something inside me stopped. A small, cold part of me whispered to wait, to watch. I would endure, observe, and see where this led. I couldn't breathe. Every laugh we'd shared, every quiet night, now felt hollow. The woman who had been my whole life, my anchor, had become someone else, someone who didn't need me. I thought about asking her if she loved me. No, that wouldn't work. She would lie. She always did. And I didn't want lies tonight. I wanted truth, even if it destroyed me. I heard Eric's name again. "I can't wait for tonight, Eric." Her voice shook slightly, a mixture of desire and guilt. Something in me snapped, a quiet, restrained kind of fury. Not at her, not yet, but at the man who didn't even know I was watching, who didn't know who I really was. I wanted to shake the life out of him, but that fury was locked away, buried deep beneath the hurt. I remembered the first time I met Eric. I hadn't, really. I knew his face, his laugh, the way he carried himself, through work gossip and office chatter. But I had never spoken to him. Never imagined he'd end up in my house, whispering to my wife. I put my cup down, letting it clink against the counter. I didn't care if she heard. My hands were steady now, but my stomach was a knot of ice. I needed to think, to plan, to survive this moment without collapsing. I thought about what to say. Lena, how could you? I know about Eric. No, none of that would work. She wouldn't hear me. And even if she did, the words wouldn't bring back what we had. I realized I had no choice but to endure. Hours passed. I stayed in the kitchen, pretending to read, pretending to care about the muted TV. Her whispers finally ended. I heard her door close softly, her footsteps retreating into the night. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. My hands shook slightly as I wiped them on my jeans. I was alive, yes, but part of me had died tonight. Something had shifted irrevocably. I was no longer the man she saw, the man she ignored, but I was also more than the man she would ever understand. I remembered the old advice I had once read, pain is the teacher. Watch carefully, endure quietly, and learn. I sat at the counter long after the house had gone silent. I replayed her voice, her words, her secrets. Eric. The name burned in my mind. I felt rage, sorrow, heartbreak, all tangled into a tight knot in my chest. And then, slowly, a quiet clarity settled over me. I wouldn't confront her tonight. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't yell. I would wait. I would observe. I would endure. Because the man she ignored for years, the man she erased from her life, had not disappeared. He had just been waiting. I finished my cold coffee, leaving it in the sink, and went to my room. My bed felt empty, colder than usual. I lay down, staring at the ceiling, replaying her whispers. I didn't cry, not yet. I couldn't. Instead, I thought about the future, about the choices I had yet to make. And I knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. The night stretched long, silent except for the hum of the city outside and the ghost of her voice echoing in my mind. I realized that my life had just tilted on its axis, and I wasn't sure how I would find my footing. But one thing was certain, I would survive this. I would endure. And someday, she would see the man she had ignored for years in a way she would never forget. For now, I stayed in the shadows of my own home, quiet, unseen, and unnoticed. Waiting. Watching. Enduring. And that was enough, for now. The next evening, I couldn't stay still. I kept replaying Lena's voice in my head, her whispering Eric like it was the only thing that mattered. I told myself I'd wait, endure, but tonight, I had to know. I poured a glass of water and pretended to read on the couch. She walked past me, humming softly, phone in hand. I cleared my throat. Going out? I asked casually. Just a walk, she said. Her tone was flat, rehearsed. Alone? Yes, she said. Then she paused, glanced at me for a fraction of a second, and walked past. That glance, so fleeting, made my stomach twist. It was the same glance she had given me the day we got married, full of promise, but now empty. I waited until she disappeared down the street, then grabbed my coat and followed, careful to stay in the shadows. My heart pounded. Every step was a war between reason and desperation. I told myself to stay quiet, to observe. No yelling, no confrontation. Just watch. I reached the park near our street and saw her sitting on a bench, phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was low, intimate. "I missed you," she whispered. "I missed you too," came the reply. A male voice. Smooth. Confident. Eric. I clenched my fists so hard my nails bit into my palms. My throat burned, but I forced myself to stay behind the bushes. I can't wait any longer," Lena said softly. "It's been too long." "I know," he replied. "Tonight, we'll make it count." The words stung like a slap. I wanted to shout, "Lena, stop." But I couldn't. Part of me wanted to disappear, to vanish into the night. But another part, the part that had been silent for years, wanted to see this through, to remember every word, every expression. You're here for me, right?" she asked. Her voice trembled slightly. "Always," he said. "You know that." I felt bile rise in my throat. Always. That word, it had been mine, once. But not anymore. Not tonight. I wanted to storm out, scream, tell her how long I had endured her coldness, her neglect. But I didn't. I couldn't. I had to watch. The air between them was electric, intimate, something I had been denied for years. I remembered the dinners where she barely spoke, the nights she ignored me, the warmth I used to crave that she refused to give. All of it had led to this, her whispering another man's name in the night. "You think he'll ever find out?" she whispered. "I don't care," he said. "This is ours." I wanted to step forward, but my feet wouldn't move. My mind spun. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a mirror showing me everything I had ignored in our marriage. I had loved her silently. I had endured her coldness, hoping it would pass. And now, this. I ducked behind a tree as they laughed quietly. I didn't want to see them touch, didn't want to imagine it, but the sound of her laugh, my Lena, was unbearable. I felt like I was being split in two, one part screaming, one part frozen, observing, enduring. I thought of confronting her, just once. "Lena, what are you doing? Do you love him? Do you even care about me?" But my voice stayed locked inside. I couldn't speak. I couldn't ruin the scene. I had to wait. I had to endure. You're going to get in trouble if anyone finds out," Lena said, her voice soft. "I don't care," he said again. His confidence, his arrogance, it made my blood boil. Who was this man? Who thought he could take what had been mine? A flash of anger hit me. I could confront him, humiliate him, destroy him. But I didn't. Not yet. I had learned long ago that silent observation was more powerful than any outburst. Power was patience, patience and timing. "You've changed," I whispered to myself. Not to her, not to him, just to the dark air around me. I've changed. I followed them at a distance as they left the park. My chest ached with every step. She didn't notice me, didn't see my silent presence watching the woman I loved slip further away. Every laugh, every soft word, every hidden glance she gave him was a dagger. Later, I watched from my car as they hugged outside a small cafe. Her face was close to his, her lips almost brushing his ear. I swallowed hard. I wanted to drive away, to vanish, to forget, but I couldn't. Not yet. I had to know, had to endure, had to let the truth sink in fully. When they finally parted, she walked down the street alone. I stayed hidden, letting her disappear into the night before I followed back home. Inside our apartment, everything was quiet. Too quiet. I went to the kitchen and poured a drink. My hands shook. My heart raced. I kept thinking about the words I had heard, about the intimacy I had witnessed. She walked past me, phone in hand, pretending to be casual. "Everything okay?" I asked softly. Yeah, fine," she said, eyes averted. I didn't say anything else. What could I say? Everything had already been said, in whispers and laughter she didn't want me to hear. I just nodded, silently, enduring. Later, I sat at the counter, replaying every word, every sound. Eric. That name burned in my ears. She had whispered it like it was sacred. My Lena. My wife. The woman I had silently loved, ignored, endured, had given him a part of her I had never had. I remembered our early days. The mornings when she would brush my hair from my face, the nights we had stayed awake talking, laughing. Those memories felt distant now, like they belonged to someone else. And I realized that silence had allowed this to happen. My endurance had been my cage. But endurance wasn't weakness. I told myself that now. Watching, waiting, observing, that was my power. I had not confronted her. I had not destroyed him. I had not acted impulsively. I had learned, absorbed, and prepared. I couldn't stop thinking about my next move. I had to find out more. Who was this man? Where did he work? Did he know who I really was? The questions burned in my mind, feeding a cold determination I hadn't felt in years. She finally went to bed, and I stayed at the counter long after the lights went out. I replayed the night in my mind, each word, each whisper. The betrayal was real, deep, and raw. But something inside me had awakened. Something quiet, patient, and sharp. I realized, as I turned off the kitchen light, that I wouldn't act tonight. Not yet. I would endure. I would watch. I would wait. Because the man I had been, the one she ignored for years, was not gone. He was still here, alive, silent, and now alert. And I knew one day, the truth I had just uncovered would matter. One day, she would realize that the man she had dismissed, ignored, and taken for granted, had been waiting. For now, I let the house fall silent, listening to the distant hum of the city. My thoughts were heavy, my heart broken, but my resolve was forming. This was only the beginning. And I would be ready. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face leaning toward him, her lips brushing his ear, her hands hidden in his. My chest tightened, and I thought about confronting her, about screaming, about demanding the truth. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I poured a glass of water and walked into the living room, where Maya, my assistant, had just called. "Hey, still awake?" she asked through the phone. "Yeah," I said. My voice was quieter than usual. "Can you do me a favor?" "Sure." "What's up?" "Tomorrow. I need the files from the East Wing audit. Can you have them ready by morning?" "Already on it," she said. "Don't you worry, boss. You've got too much to handle to worry about paperwork." Her voice, calm and cheerful, made my chest ache differently. She didn't know, couldn't know, about the storm inside me. I smiled faintly. "Thanks, Maya. I appreciate it." "No problem," she said. "Then, everything okay?" You sound tense. I hesitated. Yeah, just tired. I ended the call before she could ask more. I couldn't tell her. No one could know. Not yet. The next morning, I went to work as usual, keeping my voice steady, my face neutral. At the office, Eric was already there, chatting casually with colleagues. I watched from a distance, noting the arrogance in his posture, the confidence that had nothing to do with skill. You look unusually quiet, my colleague, David, said, raising an eyebrow. Just busy, I muttered. My thoughts weren't on reports or meetings. They were on her, on him, on every whispered word from the night before. Later, Maya walked in, carrying the audit files. Here you go, she said. Everything in order. I double-checked. Thanks, I said. My hands brushed hers briefly. The warmth of a normal interaction reminded me that I could still control something. That I wasn't completely powerless. As I reviewed the files, I thought about Eric again. He had no idea who I really was, no idea that I could ruin him in seconds. Part of me wanted to do it, to fire him instantly. But I didn't. I wanted to see more. I wanted to wait, observe, and make every action count. That evening, I returned home. Lena was in the kitchen, scrolling on her phone. I lingered by the counter. Dinner? I asked. Not hungry, she replied without looking up. Okay, I said softly. I could feel the old ache in my chest, the hollow weight of being invisible. I remembered the years we spent together, the laughter, the closeness, and how quietly it had all slipped away. Lena, I said after a moment, do you ever talk to me anymore? She glanced at me, briefly. I talk. You just don't listen. I wanted to argue, to tell her that I did listen, that I had always listened, but the words didn't come. They never did anymore. Instead, I nodded, letting her have that moment. Silence had become my shield. Later, I found myself in the living room, staring at the muted TV, thinking about choices. Confronting her tonight would only lead to shouting, crying, maybe empty promises. Walking away would hurt, but I wasn't ready for that yet. The only choice I could make, one I had already made, was to stay silent. To endure. To watch. To plan. You're awfully quiet tonight, she said from the hallway. I muttered. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of emotion. Not yet. She sighed, a sound filled with frustration I could almost touch. You've changed. I felt the words like a knife. I said again. Silence was easier than explanation. Later, I called Maya to check on progress for another project. Everything's on schedule, she said brightly. You don't need to worry. I know, I said. Thanks. You're welcome. But you know, if you ever need to talk, I'm here, she added softly. I smiled faintly. Thanks, Maya. I appreciate it. After hanging up, I leaned back in my chair. Conversation with her reminded me that I could still interact normally, that I wasn't entirely consumed by betrayal. But the betrayal was there, lurking, shaping every thought, every heartbeat. That night, I followed Lena again, carefully, quietly. She didn't notice me, didn't suspect that I had been listening, observing, learning. I saw her meet Eric again, his hand brushing hers, her smile softening at his words. I clenched my fists but stayed hidden. You're incredible, he whispered. You too, she said softly. I felt a cold fury, sharp and biting. Not directed at her, not yet, but at him. How dare he touch her? How dare he take the warmth, the affection, the trust that I had silently guarded for years? But I didn't act. I waited. I endured. I watched. That endurance, that patience, was my weapon. Later, at home, I poured a drink and stared at the dark ceiling. I replayed every word I had heard, every gesture I had observed. My chest ached with heartbreak, with rage, with disbelief. And yet, amid the pain, I felt something unfamiliar: control. I could act, but I chose not to. Power was patience, and patience was mine. The next morning, I went into work, pretending nothing had happened. Eric was laughing with colleagues, oblivious. I reviewed reports, signed approvals, answered emails. Everything appeared normal. I smiled politely when he passed my office, masking the storm inside me. Later, Maya walked in again, holding another stack of files. "Here's everything for the upcoming audit," she said. "You're going to be busy, huh?" I said. "Thanks." "You're awfully quiet," she said. "Everything okay?" I paused, choosing my words carefully. "Just focused," I said. That was true enough. My mind was focused on her, on him, on every whispered word and every secret I had learned. Maya hesitated. "You know, you can talk to me if you need to." I smiled faintly. "I know." "Thanks, Maya." She left, and I returned to my work, to my plans, to my patience. I didn't confront Lena. I didn't confront Eric. I didn't even cry. I endured, silently, letting the truth sink deeper, letting it shape me. That night, I sat in the living room after she went to bed. My hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, my mind replaying every scene, every whisper. I realized that this silence, this patience, was more powerful than any outburst. By enduring, by watching, I was learning everything I needed to know. I remembered all the years she had ignored me, all the times I had been invisible. And now, the roles had shifted slightly, invisibility replaced by awareness, by knowledge, by quiet power. I wasn't helpless. I was alive, watching, and waiting. And someday, she would realize that the man she had ignored, the man she had overlooked, was still here, stronger, quieter, and more aware than she could ever imagine. The house was silent except for the hum of the city outside and the faint sound of her breathing upstairs. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the warmth calm me, letting the clarity grow. The morning started like any other, but I felt different. Calm. Focused. My mind replayed every moment from the previous nights, every word, every glance. Lena. Eric. Their whispers. Their laughter. And me, quiet, patient, observing. I walked into the office, nodding at colleagues as if nothing had changed. Eric was there, talking loudly by the coffee machine. His arrogance made my blood boil, but I stayed silent, waiting for the right moment. "Morning," I said to him as I passed. "Hey," he replied casually. "Did you see the Henderson report? Crazy numbers, right?" I nodded, forcing a neutral expression. Very interesting." He didn't notice the edge beneath my words, the quiet intensity in my gaze. That was exactly how I wanted it. Later, in my office, Mr. Hall, a senior board member, stopped by. "You've been awfully restrained lately," he said, raising an eyebrow. "Everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I said smoothly, closing the report in front of me. "Just focused on the audit." "Focused, huh?" he said. "I hope that focus doesn't turn into indulgence. Patience is good, but make sure it doesn't become inaction." I met his eyes steadily. Patience isn't an action, I said. It's planning. Timing. Precision. He nodded slowly. I like your style. Just, don't let it consume you. I smiled faintly. Noted. Once he left, Maya knocked and entered, holding a stack of folders. Here's the summary for the East Wing review, she said. You're going to have to decide fast, the board wants results. Thanks, I said, taking the files. My hands were steady, my mind sharp. I'll review tonight. Make sure Eric is prepared for the audit briefing. Maya hesitated. Are you planning something? Just making sure everything is in order, I said. No more, no less. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if sensing my quiet intensity. Got it. I trust you. I watched her leave, thinking about Eric again. He had no idea I was fully aware of him, of everything he'd done. My silence, my patience, it was a weapon I wielded without him knowing. During the afternoon, I called Eric into my office. Eric, can you review these financial summaries? I asked casually, sliding a folder across the desk. Sure, he said, flipping through the pages. Everything looks fine, though. You don't really need me, do you? I smiled faintly. I always appreciate your input. He smirked. Well, thanks, boss. But you've been distant lately. Everything okay at home? My pulse skipped, but my face stayed calm. Home is fine. Focus on work. He nodded and left, oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Later, I overheard Lena on a call again. She spoke softly, carefully. I don't know why he's acting differently, she said. He's distant, cold. I think he's busy, someone replied. I guess, maybe, she murmured. I leaned against the wall, listening. Distant. Cold. Funny, isn't it? That's exactly how I had felt for years. And now it was her turn. After she hung up, I went to the boardroom for a meeting. I noticed Eric sitting across from me, confident, unaware. The board asked questions, and I answered calmly, logically, decisively. I controlled the room without raising my voice, without aggression. Every word, every glance, built the quiet power I had been cultivating. Excellent, Mr. Hall said after the meeting. You handled that brilliantly. Calm, measured, precise. I like it. Thank you, I said. I felt a surge of satisfaction, not from praise, but from control. The tables had shifted, subtly, quietly. I was no longer invisible. I was the one holding the cards. After work, I stayed late, reviewing every detail of Eric's projects, every weak point, every small violation he had overlooked. I didn't want revenge, not yet, but I wanted preparation. Knowledge was power. Observation was control. Patience was my weapon. Maya walked in quietly, carrying more files. You're still here, she asked. Yes, I said. I have to make sure everything is ready for tomorrow. Board review. She hesitated, glancing at the clock. You don't need to work yourself to death. You know that, right? I know, I said softly. But sometimes, patience requires preparation. She smiled faintly. You've changed, you know. More controlled. Calm. Stronger. I nodded. That's the point, Maya. Strength comes quietly. Later, driving home, I thought about Lena again. Her calls, her whispers, her coldness, all the years I had endured. And now, the power had shifted. I wasn't powerless anymore. I was patient, aware, and fully awake to everything. At home, I made coffee and sat at the counter, thinking. I knew she was upstairs, waiting for me to return to the old dynamic, to the quiet submission, the silent acceptance. But I wasn't that man anymore. I had learned. I had endured. And I had control. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, casual, as if nothing had changed. "Long day?" she asked. I said, pouring coffee. "You?" "Fine," she said, glancing at me briefly. Then she hesitated. "You've been different lately. More distant. Cold sometimes." I took a slow sip. Just focused." She studied me, searching for a hint of the man she thought she knew. I didn't give her one. That was intentional. Silence had power. Mystery had leverage. And I had both now. Later, I called Maya again, discussing final details for tomorrow's board review. "Everything's ready," she said. "You've been meticulous. I've never seen you this calm under pressure." "Calm is patience," I said. "Patience is power." She paused. "You're changing. I can see it. For the better, I think." I let that thought settle in. "Thanks, Maya. I appreciate that." After she left, I stayed in the office long after the lights went out. I reviewed every detail, memorized every number, and planned silently. Eric's arrogance would become his downfall, but not tonight. Not yet. I needed patience. Observation. Knowledge. Timing. When I finally left, the city was quiet. I drove home slowly, thinking about Lena, thinking about Eric, thinking about the subtle shift in my life. The man she ignored for years, the one she overlooked, was no longer invisible. I had control. Not through yelling, not through confrontation, not through emotion, but through quiet, deliberate action. I walked into the apartment and saw her on the couch, phone in hand. "You're working late again," she said softly. I replied. Silence was my answer. That silence carried more weight than any argument could. She frowned slightly but didn't press. She had noticed, finally, a change. She had begun to see me differently. And that, I realized, was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up early, more awake than I had been in years. Today wasn't just another day. Today, everything would change, but not with shouting, not with anger, not with desperation. Today, I would act with control. Precision. Silence had given me strength, and now it was time to use it. At the office, Eric greeted me as usual, confident, smiling like he owned the place. I watched him for a moment, letting the tension build, letting the quiet awareness settle around him. "Morning," I said casually. "Hey," he replied. "You look rested. Ready for the briefing?" I nodded slowly. "Yes. We'll start in 5 minutes." As he left, I called Maya into my office. "Everything ready for the East Wing audit?" I asked. "Yes, boss," she said. "Files, reports, everything. But you've been different lately. Quiet, precise, sharper." Eric noticed too. I said. "That's the point. Precision matters more than noise." She looked at me curiously. "I guess. I just hope you're okay. You've been distant." "I'm fine," I said firmly. "Just focused." She nodded, sensing she couldn't push further. Maya was loyal, observant, and cautious, exactly the kind of ally I needed. The boardroom was ready when I arrived. Eric was already there, chatting with colleagues, oblivious to the storm gathering in the quiet calm of my office. I took a deep breath and entered, letting the presence of authority settle around me. "Good morning," I said, scanning the room. "Let's begin." The briefing started normally. I let Eric speak first, letting him present the data he had compiled. He was confident, arrogant, unaware that every mistake, every oversight, every minor violation he had made was known to me. Every word he spoke, every casual gesture, I stored. When he finished, I leaned forward, voice calm but carrying weight. "Eric," I said, "I've reviewed your reports thoroughly. There are several discrepancies I need to address." He looked surprised. "Discrepancies? What do you mean?" "I mean that some of your figures don't match the source documents. Some expenses were misreported. Some deadlines were ignored. And some procedures were violated, knowingly or not." His confident expression faltered slightly. I didn't realize." "I know," I said softly. "But I do. And I've had enough patience." The silence in the room was heavy. Eric swallowed, realizing I wasn't angry, I was prepared. I was in control. "You're firing me?" he asked cautiously, disbelief and panic in his voice. "I am," I said, calm, deliberate. "Effective immediately. You will receive your severance according to company policy. But the position is no longer yours." He stared at me, pale, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I don't understand." "Why now?" "Because patience has limits, Eric. Observation requires clarity. And I've seen everything." Eric's eyes flicked toward the door. "Wait, are you?" "Yes," I said quietly. "I am your boss. And I have been for some time." The room was silent except for Eric's shallow breathing. Colleagues stared, stunned. He didn't know. He had never known. And now, the truth had hit him like a hammer. I had no idea," he stammered. "You should have," I said softly. "And now, you face the consequences of your actions." He sat down heavily, defeated. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Silence carried more weight than words. Later, when the room emptied, I called Lena. "Lena, can you come to the office?" I asked calmly. Office?" "Why?" she asked, a tremor in her voice. "Just come." "Please," I said. Her silence told me everything. She knew. Deep down, she had felt the shift. She arrived 20 minutes later, eyes wide, hands clutching her bag. You're the boss," she whispered. I nodded slowly. "Yes, Lena. I've been the boss. And today, Eric learned who I am." Her hand went to her mouth. "You fired him? You knew?" "Yes," I said softly. "I knew everything. Every whisper. Every secret. Every choice you made." Her knees went weak. She sat down on a nearby chair. I didn't know. I didn't think. I didn't. Do you understand now?" I asked, voice quiet but firm. "Do you understand how long I've endured, how long I've been patient?" Tears welled in her eyes. I'm sorry. I never meant." "You meant," I said, finishing her sentence, "to ignore me. To take me for granted. To find comfort in someone else. Lena, I began, but she shook her head. No, she whispered. I can't. I can't explain. I got lost. I've waited for years, Lena, I said. I've watched, I've endured, and I've learned. And now, you see me. Not the man you ignored, but the man who had control all along. She buried her face in her hands. I don't know what to say. I didn't realize. You don't need to say anything, I said. The truth is here. You know everything now. And I don't need your words. I need your honesty, and perhaps, your awareness of what you lost. She looked up at me, tears in her eyes. I made a mistake. I didn't see you. I didn't love you the way I should have. You didn't, I said quietly. But I endured. I watched. I waited. And now, everything has changed. Not because I yelled. Not because I begged. But because I stayed silent, and now I am the reality you can't escape. She sat in stunned silence, absorbing the weight of my words. For the first time in years, she realized I had power. She realized I was more than she had given me credit for. You really are different, she said softly, voice trembling. Yes, I said. I've always been here. Waiting. Patient. Observing. And now, you see me. She looked down, ashamed. I can't believe I ignored you for so long. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I let the silence settle. Silence had always carried more truth than any words she could speak. I wanted her to feel it. To understand. To realize the depth of what she had lost. Lena, I said finally, voice low and steady, you've learned something today. And I hope it teaches you what it means to take someone for granted. Her lips trembled. I see it now. I don't say anything, I said. Just understand. And remember. The day after Eric was gone, the apartment felt different. Quiet, heavy, charged. Lena moved around like she was walking on glass, each step careful, tentative. I sat at the counter, coffee in hand, observing. I didn't speak. Silence had become my ally, and now, it was her punishment. Morning, she said softly, barely meeting my eyes. I replied, not looking up. She stirred her tea, hands shaking slightly. I wanted to apologize. I didn't see you. I made mistakes. I didn't respond. Silence carried more weight than words could. I shouldn't have ignored you for so long, she continued. I let him, Eric, come between us. Lena, I interrupted gently, still calm, do you understand now? Do you understand what years of silence, of neglect, feel like? She looked down, tears brimming. I do. I feel it. I feel everything I put you through. Good, I said quietly. Because that feeling, it's mine to carry. You can't take it away with apologies. Her lips trembled. I wish I could. I want to make it right. I don't know how. You don't get to make it right, I said firmly. You get to see it. You get to understand it. And maybe that's enough. She flinched at the firmness in my voice, realizing I wasn't the same man she had ignored, the man she had treated like air. That man was gone. He had been replaced by someone quiet, patient, deliberate, and finally in control. I know I don't deserve it, she said softly, but can we? I don't know, talk? Really talk? I took a slow sip of coffee, eyes steady on her. We can talk, yes. But understand this, my patience isn't weakness. My silence isn't submission. I've been invisible for years, Lena. Now, I am here. And I am not invisible anymore. Her hands clutched the cup tighter. I know. I see it. I see you. I can't believe I didn't see it before. I leaned back slightly, letting the weight of my presence fill the room. Silence stretched between us, heavy, deliberate, meaningful. It was my way of showing her how it felt to be overlooked, ignored, dismissed. Do you feel it? I asked softly. Feel what? This weight. This absence of my words, my attention, my life, the years you ignored me. Her lips quivered. I do. I feel it. Every day. That's why I stayed silent, I said, voice calm. Because I needed you to see. To understand. Not to react. Not to beg. Just to witness. She looked at me, eyes wide, tearful. I do. I've never felt, never understood before. Enough, I said gently. Just feel it. Understand it. Accept it. She nodded slowly, swallowing hard. I understand now. I realize how blind I was. How selfish. How careless. I remained quiet, letting my presence speak louder than any words. Years of neglect had been reversed, not with yelling, not with pleading, but with quiet, deliberate observation and action. Can we maybe start over? She asked hesitantly. I can't promise I won't make mistakes, but I want to try. I looked at her for a long moment. The woman I had loved for years, the woman who had ignored me, who had whispered another man's name in the night, was finally seeing me, truly seeing me. Starting over isn't about promises, I said slowly. It's about understanding. About respect. About awareness. You have that now. Let's see if you can keep it. Her eyes welled up further. I can. I will. I swear. I believe you, I said quietly. But understand, my belief isn't blind. I've learned to watch. To endure. To wait. And I will continue to do that. Observation is now my strength, Lena. And you will feel it. Her hands trembled as she reached toward me, almost touching my arm. I didn't move. She pulled back, realizing this wasn't about touch. This was about presence, awareness, respect. I see it, she whispered. I see you now. I can't ignore you anymore. Good, I said softly. Silence stretched between us, but it wasn't empty. It was heavy with meaning, with lessons learned, with acknowledgement. Later that evening, she attempted small gestures, coffee left by my chair, brief words of appreciation, tentative smiles. I acknowledged each silently, letting them sink in, letting her feel the weight of attention that she had withheld from me for so long. I didn't realize how much I missed this, she said softly one night, sitting across from me at the counter. What? I asked, calm, deliberate. Attention. Presence. Just feeling noticed by you. I nodded slowly. You ignored it before. Now you feel it. She swallowed hard, ashamed. I know. I can't believe I took it for granted. That's the point, I said. You see it now. And you will never forget it. Her eyes brimmed with tears. I don't want to forget it. I want to learn from it. I want to be better. For you. For us. I let her words settle, knowing that her understanding, her awareness, was the first real step toward change. Days passed in a strange rhythm. She apologized quietly, acted carefully, watched me as if trying to understand the man she had ignored. I responded with patience, observation, and subtle acknowledgement. I didn't reward mistakes, but I didn't punish attempts either. My silence had become the most powerful teacher. One evening, she looked at me, voice trembling. I think I finally understand what it feels like. To be overlooked. Invisible. I've been cruel. You have, I said calmly. But now, you know. You've learned. And that is the start of change. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I want to change. I want to be someone worthy of your patience. Your silence. Your endurance. You will, I said softly. But understand, it won't be instant. Change is earned. Awareness is earned. And trust is earned. Her lips quivered. I will earn it. I promise. I let her words hang in the air. Promises weren't enough. Awareness, acknowledgement, effort, that was what mattered. She had tasted regret, felt the absence of my attention, and now, she understood. The following week, the apartment felt tense, as if the air itself held its breath. Lena was trying, oh, how she was trying, but I could see the careful calculation behind every word, every gesture. I didn't speak much, letting her actions carry the weight of their intentions. Silence, after all, had become my language. Morning, she said softly, placing a mug of coffee in front of me. Her hands shook slightly. I said, looking down at the coffee. I made it just the way you like it, she continued. Black. No sugar. No cream. I nodded, taking a slow sip. Thank you, I said quietly. No smile. No gratitude beyond the acknowledgement. That wasn't the point. The point was that she understood what mattered to me, and that she was acting intentionally. I know I can't fix the past, she said, voice trembling slightly, but I want to. I want to try. To be better. For you. For us. I said. I didn't comment. I let the weight of her words sit. Actions mattered more than apologies. Later, she hovered near me as I worked on reports, offering quiet comments, subtle insights. You might want to double-check these figures, she suggested carefully. I noticed a minor discrepancy. I glanced at her, noticing the effort in her tone. Not manipulation, not excuses, just awareness. Good eye, I said softly. That was acknowledgement enough. She was learning. Slowly. That evening, she attempted conversation, trying to recreate the intimacy we had lost. "Do you remember our first anniversary?" she asked hesitantly. I looked at her, expression neutral. "I remember. You were so thoughtful. You planned everything perfectly. I didn't appreciate it then, but I do now," she said, her eyes searching mine. I replied, letting the silence hang. Recognition was all she would get until she proved more than memory and regret. Later, she tried a small act of kindness, leaving a note on my desk. "I see you. I value you. I won't ignore you again." I picked it up, reading the words slowly. I didn't respond immediately. I let it sit in front of me, heavy with meaning. She was trying. That much was clear. But intention alone was not enough. Observation and patience were still my weapons, my shield, and my measure of power. The next day, at breakfast, she approached carefully. I thought maybe we could go out. For lunch. Just us. No distractions." I looked at her quietly, considering. I said, finally. "All right." Her eyes widened slightly, hope flickering. "Really? You want to?" "I want to observe," I said simply. "See how genuine your effort is." She nodded quickly, suppressing a nervous smile. "Of course. I understand." At the restaurant, she tried again, laughter, smiles, soft touches, small, tentative, careful. "You've changed," she said softly during a quiet moment. You're more composed. Calm. Strong." I didn't see it before." I said. I let her feel the weight of her own words. She was learning. She was noticing. And that was the point. I want to be the wife you deserve," she continued, voice trembling. I know I hurt you. I ignored you. I let another man come between us. I don't want to do that anymore." "You've begun to understand," I said quietly. "Understanding is the first step. But don't mistake intention for proof. Proof comes through consistency. Observation. Action." Her lips trembled. I will prove it. Every day. I will earn back your trust. Your respect." I said again, letting her words linger. They were good words, but words alone were not enough. The weight of silence, the patience I had cultivated, the observation I had maintained, they were my measures now. She reached for my hand lightly across the table. I didn't move, didn't pull away. I let her gesture rest in the space between us, testing, measuring, seeing how deliberate her actions were. I can feel your presence now," she said softly, voice trembling. I see you. I see what I ignored for so long." "That's the point," I said quietly. "Recognition is the start. Action is what will determine the future." She nodded, swallowing hard, tears brimming. I understand. I feel it. And I will act. I won't take you for granted again." I said, leaning back slightly. Silence had become my response. Power, patience, and observation, all intertwined. The following days were a careful dance. She watched me, anticipating reactions, gauging responses. She spoke softly, acted carefully, tried subtle gestures of care. And I watched. I observed. I endured. I allowed her attempts to be genuine, or not. One evening, she came home after a long day, carrying a small bouquet of flowers. I saw these and thought of you, she said softly, holding them out. I want to show you. I notice. I care. I looked at the flowers, then at her. I said finally. That acknowledgement was enough for now. The effort was observed. The intention recorded. But her worthiness was not yet proven. She sat across from me, hesitant. Do you feel it? My effort? I see it, I said quietly. I notice it. But seeing isn't the same as trusting. You've begun the path, but the journey isn't complete. Her eyes filled with tears. I know. I understand. I will continue. I will not fail again. I nodded slowly, letting the silence hang heavy between us. Observation and endurance were my allies. Her recognition of my power, her careful attempts, her awareness of what she had lost, these were my satisfaction. Not her words, not her apologies, not even her gestures. Later, she attempted conversation again, softly, carefully. Do you remember our first trip? She asked quietly. I remember, I said calmly. You planned everything. Every detail. Every day was perfect. And I didn't notice. I didn't appreciate it. I see it now. I see you. I said. Silence. Let her feel the weight of recognition. Let her understand that acknowledgement wasn't a reward, it was the bare minimum. She tried to touch my arm lightly, softly. I didn't move. I let her hand hover there, almost brushing, almost connecting. Control was quiet. Patience was quiet. Observation was deliberate. That morning, I woke early, the city still quiet outside my window. I watched Lena move through the apartment like she was testing herself, testing me, testing whether her awareness, her gestures, her apologies, were enough. I didn't speak. I simply observed. Silence had become my most powerful tool. Morning, she said softly, setting a mug of coffee in front of me. I replied. She lingered, hesitant. I wanted to ask about yesterday. About everything. About Eric. About us. I took a slow sip, letting the warmth settle. Go on. I can't believe I let it get that far, she whispered. I ignored you. I took you for granted. I let someone else enter our lives emotionally. And now, I see what that means. You see, I said quietly, but do you understand? Truly understand? It's one thing to see. It's another to feel the weight of what you lost. The years of silence, of neglect, of overlooking me. Her eyes brimmed with tears. I do. I feel it. I feel every day I ignored you, every time I chose distraction over presence, every time I whispered his name. That's right, I said. You feel it now. That feeling, it's the consequence of betrayal. Not punishment. Not revenge. But consequence. You caused it. You endured it. You see it. You understand it. That's the difference. She nodded slowly. I know. I feel it in every fiber of my being. I don't want to ever feel it again. I want to earn your trust. Your awareness. Your respect. Everything I neglected. I said, letting the silence linger. That wait, that pause, spoke more than any words. Observation had taught me patience, endurance, and quiet control. She was learning. Slowly. Later, at breakfast, she tried to make conversation again. Do you remember our first house? She asked softly. I remember, I said calmly. You planned every detail, she continued, voice trembling slightly. I didn't notice. I didn't appreciate it. But now. I do. I see it. I see you. I replied. I let her words hang in the air. Recognition was the start. Action would come later. Words alone would not prove the lesson had been learned. She reached for my hand across the table. I didn't pull away. I didn't move. I let her presence hover near mine, testing, feeling, learning. Control was quiet. Patience was deliberate. Observation was deliberate. I want to be worthy, she said softly. Worthy of your patience, your silence, your presence. I want to be better. You will, I said. But understand, it's earned. Every day. Every action. Every choice. You don't get to claim change with words alone. You earn it. Through effort. Awareness. Observation. Every day. Every gesture. Every moment. Her lips trembled. I understand. I will earn it. I said. Silence carried its weight, and she felt it. That was the point. She had learned the lesson of betrayal, but the lesson of consequence was ongoing. Later that day, she called a colleague, cautiously asking about Eric. I just wanted to know what happened. The situation. I didn't realize until now. I overheard her, quietly listening from the doorway. Her tone was careful, contrite. Awareness carried weight. Acknowledgement carried weight. And I remained patient, observing, measuring. Consequences weren't immediate, they unfolded. And she was beginning to feel them. That evening, she tried to initiate intimacy, not physical, but emotional. I want to talk about us, she said softly, eyes downcast. I said calmly. Go on. I can't stop thinking about what I did, she whispered. The betrayal. The way I ignored you. I took you for granted. I let another man into our emotional space. And now, I see the consequences. I see the pain I caused. You see it, I said quietly, letting the silence stretch. And feeling it, that's part of the lesson. You can't undo it. You can't erase it. You can only acknowledge it, act with awareness, and learn from it. I understand, she said, voice trembling. I feel it. And I will never forget. I want to change. I want to be better. I said. Observation, patience, endurance, all my allies. She was beginning to understand, but true proof would take time. Consistency would be her measure. Awareness would be her test. Days passed in quiet tension. She attempted gestures of care, coffee brewed just right, small notes, tentative conversation. She watched me, gauged my reactions, adjusted her behavior. I observed. I endured. I let her see that the consequences of betrayal weren't punishment, they were a reflection of reality. She had caused the pain, and now she must navigate its weight. One evening, she approached carefully, sitting across from me. I know I hurt you deeply, she whispered. I betrayed your trust. I ignored you for so long. I want to show you I can be better. I said calmly. Silence stretched, heavy with meaning. Observation had taught me patience. The lesson of consequence had been learned through her own awareness. I can feel it now, she said softly, tears brimming. I feel the weight of what I did. I see the emptiness I caused. I see you. And I want to repair it. I said again. Acknowledgement without reward. Awareness without surrender. She must feel it, truly, deeply, without shortcuts. Consequence had been delivered. Recognition had begun. Action would follow. Later, she tried another gesture, preparing dinner for both of us, carefully chosen, perfectly executed. I wanted to show you I'm paying attention. I notice what matters to you. I want to make amends. I watched her quietly, noting the effort, the attention to detail, the awareness of my preferences. I said softly. She needed no more acknowledgement. The lesson was unfolding. Consequences had been learned. Awareness was growing. The apartment was quiet that morning, the kind of silence that felt loaded with anticipation. I had watched, waited, and endured for weeks, letting Lena's awareness grow, letting her gestures and apologies unfold. Today, everything would reach its conclusion, not with anger, not with shouting, but with clarity. With truth. Morning, she said softly, carrying a tray with coffee and a small plate of toast. Her movements were careful, deliberate. I said, eyes on the cup. She set the tray down and lingered. I want to talk. About everything. About us. About me. I leaned back slightly, observing. Go on. I know I hurt you deeply. I betrayed your trust. I ignored you for years. I let Eric into our lives emotionally. And I didn't see the man who stood beside me every day. I said. Silence stretched, deliberate, weighty. Observation had been my tool. Patience had been my shield. She needed to feel the depth of what she had done. I feel it now, she continued, voice trembling. Every day I ignored you. Every time I sought someone else's comfort. Every moment I acted without awareness. I feel it. And I want to make amends. You want to make amends, I said quietly. Do you understand what that truly means? Not words. Not gestures. Not promises. Action. Awareness. Consistency. That's what earns redemption. Her lips quivered. I understand. I see it now. I want to prove it to you. Every day. I said. Acknowledgement without proof is meaningless. Awareness without effort is nothing. You've learned to see. Now you must act. She swallowed hard. I will. I swear I will. The silence between us deepened. I wanted her to feel the weight of the consequences she had earned. To understand that my patience had limits, but my observation had no bounds. Lena, I said finally, voice low but firm, do you understand the depth of what you lost? The years you erased? The trust you shattered? Her eyes brimmed with tears. I do. I feel it in every part of me. I can't believe I didn't see you. I didn't notice. I took you for granted. That's right, I said quietly. You feel it. You understand it. And now, you will act accordingly. Every day. Every choice. Every gesture. She nodded, swallowing hard. I will. I understand. I won't fail again. I said. Silence was my response. The weight of it, the presence of it, spoke louder than any words could. Observation had become my measure. Patience had become my weapon. Awareness had become my test. Later that day, she attempted another gesture, preparing my favorite meal. She moved quietly in the kitchen, focused, attentive. I hope it's right, she said softly, placing the plate in front of me. I want you to see that I'm aware. I care. I looked at the meal, then at her. Not bad, I said calmly. Recognition without praise. Observation without reward. She needed to feel that her actions mattered only if they were genuine. She swallowed hard. I want to make up for the years I lost. I want to be someone worthy of you. Of your patience. Your silence. Your presence. You will, I said softly. But understand, worthiness isn't given. It's earned. And you must prove it. Every day. Every action. Every moment. No shortcuts. No excuses. Her lips quivered. I understand. I will earn it. I will not fail again. The following hours were filled with tentative conversation, careful gestures, quiet acknowledgement. She spoke softly, moved cautiously, acted deliberately. And I watched. I observed. I endured. Every action measured, every gesture weighed. Consequence had been delivered. Awareness was growing. Action would prove sincerity. Later, she approached me, voice trembling. I want to talk about Eric. About everything. About the past. I need to face it, to understand fully. I nodded slowly. Go on. I can't believe I allowed him to enter our lives. Emotionally. Intimately. I betrayed your trust. I was blind. I hurt you. And I feel it now. Every moment I ignored you, every whisper I shared with him. I understand the weight of my actions. That's right, I said quietly. You feel it. That weight is real. And now, you must carry it consciously. Awareness is the first step. Action is the second. Proof is the final step. She swallowed hard. I will. I will face it. I will act accordingly. I will not fail you. I said calmly. Silence held the lesson. Observation had taught patience. Consequence had taught awareness. Endurance had taught strength. And now, Lena was beginning to understand fully. Evening came, and she approached me carefully. I want to rebuild us. To start over. I know it will take time. I know I must earn your trust. Your awareness. Your respect. Every day. I said quietly. Starting over isn't about words. It's about action. Consistency. Awareness. Effort. That is what will rebuild what you broke. Her lips trembled. I understand. I will. I swear I will. Every day. Every action. Every choice. You will, I said. But remember, actions speak louder than words. Silence carries more weight than gestures. Awareness outweighs promises. And observation is the final truth.